Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We're very, very honored and pleased to have Ustad Fraidoon Mujaddidi as our teacher for the new class we're starting today, which is Stories to Awaken You. And mashallah, Ustad Fraidoon's complete bio is in the program booklet, and I encourage you and implore you to read it when you get a chance. I won't go through all of the details right now, except to give you a couple of personal glimpses and experiences that I've had with Ustad Fraidoon. My first rihla was 10 years ago in 2005, and Ustad Fraidoon was one of the group leaders and organizers of that rihla. And we've been friends since. And this is someone that, mashallah, has been a close student and supporter of Sheikh Hamza for many, many years, going back to many years ago at the inception of Zaytuna. The Zaytuna Institute that has now become Zaytuna College has one of the original members of DIF, of the Deen Intensive Foundation, which runs the Rihla programs. He's also, mashallah, one of the people that helps organize RIS for the North Americans that are familiar with that. They're reviving the Islamic spirit. Mashallah, someone that's dedicated his life to the service of Deen and to the ulama and to the awliya of this Deen. And as someone, as we would say, as an ashik, he's a lover of Maulana Rumi, rahmatullahi alayhi. And so, inshallah, we're incredibly blessed to have him with us to share stories about Maulana Rumi and really help us, dive deep into the poetry of Maulana Rumi, rahmatullahi alayhi. So without further ado, inshallah, I'll turn it over to Ustad Fraidoon. Assalamu alaikum.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الهم والحزن وأعوذ بك من العجز والكسل وأعوذ بك من الجبن والبخل وأعوذ بك من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا ومولانا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. On the night of December 16, 1273, a great man who lived his life in love of Allah and His Messenger and served the Ummah of the Prophet ﷺ by the name of Maulana Jalaluddin Muhammad Balkhi Rumi. He was on his deathbed, surrounded by beloveds, his son Sultan Walad, his spiritual deputy, Chalabi, famous as Chalabi, Hisamuddin, his close family members, students and neighbors and community leaders. They were all around his bed as he was taking his final breath. And as we all know, the number of breaths that you have is limited. So once you inhale the last one, there's no exhaling. And once you exhale the last one, there's no inhaling. Everybody was very sad because of the love and attachment that they had to Rumi. So they asked him, as they saw him getting weaker and weaker and dying, that you're amongst the awliya of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers the call of His awliya. We know that. Why don't you ask Allah to give you healing, to cure you from this disease so you can stay with us longer? And this is the nature of a human being. Everybody wants you because of themselves. Everybody wants you because of themselves. And this is one of the things that Abdullah Ansari said in his tafsir. He says, Allah says, some people want me for my paradise. Others want me for my hurs. Where are the people who want me for myself? But Allah has put your mother in the earth just to show you a glimpse that there are people who want you for yourself. And that is the sir of creation, the mothers. They are the secret of creation. So they ask him, make this dua. And at this point, Maulana Rumi, who has uttered 45,000 plus lines in the Diwan al-Shams, 26,000 plus lines in the Masnawi, and many other lines of poetry and prose in his other books. He utters his last and final poem. And he says to them, رو سر بنه به بالین تنها مرا رها کن ترک من خراب شبگرد مبتلا کن مایم و موج سودا شب تا بروز تنها خواهی بیا ببخشا خواهی برو جفا کن درد است غیر مردن کان را دوا نباشد پس من چگونه گویم کان درد را دوا کن. He said, go away. Leave me to my mattress. Leave me to my mattress. Go. Leave me alone. I am a night wanderer. Subhanallah. A night wanderer. What you can achieve in the night, you can never achieve in the daytime. What you can see in the night, you can never see in the daytime. People think they can see further away in the day, which is this is the illusion of this dunya. That you think you can see further in the daytime. And yet, the furthest thing you can see in the daytime is the sun. And the sun is the closest of the planets and the stars. The stars are millions and billions of miles, light years away from the sun. And yet you can see many stars in the nighttime. Allah put the barakah in the night. Allah put the secret in the night. And yet the modern world, what are they trying to do with our young people at the night? They're trying to put them in the prison cell of blackness and turn off the lights and turn up the music so they cannot hear their soul and they can dance like monkeys all night. But these people, what do? They start traveling in the night. They freed themselves in the night because they had wings, spiritual wings. And this is what Maulana Rumi learned from Shams when they met. And Shams told him, he said, why are you crawling through life when God has given you wings? Fly, fly. Come to me, I'll teach you how to fly. So he said to them, he said, the pain and the disease and the sickness that you guys see, it only has one cure, and that is death. So how could I ask Allah to cure me any other way? This is the return. This is the return. This is going back. This is the whole message of Maulana Rumi. Wisal, reconnection. He said every poet talk about what? About firaq. Every poet, they talk about separation. He said, I don't. I talk about wisal, about reconnection. Because that's the power. That's the power. So the next day, on December 17th, they buried him. At the janazah prayer, the funeral prayer, there was the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims. So the Muslims, they were hayran, they were mutahayyir, they were like, what's what's here? Why are you guys here? He's ours. He's our Rumi. This is Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi. What are you guys doing here? The Jews said he reminds us of Moses. The Christians said he reminds us of Isa alayhi salam. And they were all weeping. All of them were weeping for Maulana Rumi. As they were burying him, Hisamuddin Chalabi, the disciple, he remembered a few lines from the Masnawi. And they were putting him down in a grave. He remembered a line from the reed bed. چون که گل رفت و گلستان درگذشت نشنوی زان پس ز بلبل سرگذشت. That when the flowers died and the rose garden perished, you no longer will hear the beautiful singing of the nightingales. He knew that it was over. That this inspiration that was given to Maulana Rumi, it's done. Words. What are words? What are words? How could we put our emotions, our feelings, our thoughts into words. Maulana was a genius at that. He says in the Fihi Ma Fihi, این سخن برای آن کس است که او به سخن محتاج است که ادراک کند. He said these words are for those people who are in need of words in order for them to comprehend. In other words, I'm telling you these words because you are in need of words in order to understand and comprehend. اما آن کس که بی سخن ادراک کند با وی چی حاجت سخن است. But as for the one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who understands you without any words, what is the need of speaking to him? What is the need of uttering words? People are saying, oh, what kind of dua should I make? I go silent when I get nervous. That is the best dua, when you can't remember anything. What is the need of words? For the one who can understand you without any words. آخر آسمان ها و زمین همه سخنند. Don't you know that the heavens and the earth, they're all words? و زایده از سخنند. And they're all born from a word. که کن فیکون. That Allah said kun, and it was. All of them came out of these two letters, Kaf and Noon. All of this, the existence of God came out of these two letters. When Allah said kun, and everything just popped out into existence from these two letters. And this is the power of words. This is the power of words. This is why someone could hear one talk. One talk. We have scholars that I met in my life, and they said, I was in 1994 at ISNA, and I heard Sheikh so-and-so, and that was it. It changed my life. One talk. One sentence, one word. These are the words. So what did Maulana do? What did Maulana do? He gave us the words, he gave us the forms of the words, and he gave us the meanings of the word. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he created Adam alayhi salam, he said, what did he say? وَعَلَّمَ الْآدَمَ أَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. And Allah taught Adam alayhi salam the names of all things. So he taught him not only the form, but also the meaning that that name represented. So Adam alayhi salam knew the form of a tree, and he knew the meaning of a tree. Most of the people, they only know the form. And this is where the problem lies. When you are only a person of form. When you're only a person of form. Maulana says that don't be obsessed with form, because form is like a bowl and meaning is like rice inside of it. Don't worry if the bowl changes, if the color of the bowl changes. You are here to get the meaning, the rice from inside the bowl. Don't be obsessed with the bowl. He says a beautiful line. He said, Chand bozi ishq با نقش سبو بگذر از نقش سبو رو آب جو. How many times you will lose real love because of the form of the water pitcher? Beautiful metaphor and symbolism in this. How many people lost marriages because the form wasn't right, but they didn't see through it to see the meaning in the person? That the meaning was the perfect match for them, but the form was not. We don't get married for the form. We get married for meanings, because form changes. What happens if you have a car accident and you're deformed? Would you end up in a divorce? If you're truly in love, you won't. I know a woman who was with us at Umrah last year. She got married, she got pregnant, and had her first baby, and her husband got in an accident that she had to take care of him. He couldn't do anything. 34 years. 34 years. Full time. And I always wondered, what is that? He had no form. Zero form. Done. But she was in love with the man, with the meaning of the man. One of the Americans said, he said, I don't laugh at my husband's joke because his jokes are funny, but I laugh because he is funny. If you love somebody, even if the jokes are not funny, you will laugh with them. But that's the problem. We look at the form of the water pitcher and we forget that we are there to drink the water. And then he says, forget about the form, go seek the water, start drinking the water. Suratash didi zemano ghafili. You saw the beautiful form, but you're ghafil, you're heedless from the meaning that is inside of this. As sadaf durri guzin gar aghili. If you're really intelligent, then take the pearl from inside the shell. A lot of people are satisfied with the shell, but the shell is there to carry the pearl inside. So if you're really, that's the meaning. The form is the shell, the meaning is the pearl. So meanings. The universe is filled with meanings. We mentioned this last year in the introduction session. The universe is full of meanings. All of these things that Allah created, they're all filled with meanings. There's nothing meaningless in the creation of Allah. Nothing. There's nothing extra. Like you can't cut your appendix before you have pain. Just say, you know what, let me cut it so I don't get the pain. It's extra piece. No, it's not extra. Allah didn't create anything extra in your body. He didn't create any extra in the heavens. إنما الكون معان قائمة بالصور كل من يدرك هذا كان من أهل العبر. That everything in the heavens and the earth, there are meanings set up in images. And the one that's going to benefit from this are those people who understand. They comprehend and they get the point of the meanings of these forms. But then, that is very easy to do. That is the easiest thing you can do. Get the meaning of the moon. Get the meaning of the sun. Get the meaning of the trees. It's not hard. Anybody can do that. But what is hard is for you to get the meaning of the greater universe. That universe which is inside of you. It's much bigger than the universe that you see. It's much bigger than the universe that you see. And this is why politicians always, they say, we want to change the world. Because the world is so small. They never talk about it. We want to change ourselves. But the wise people, they always say, let's change yourselves. Because they know if you change yourselves, then the world will be changed. Because Allah will take care of the world and the universe. But you have to change yourself. You have to change the universe that is inside of you. You have to change the tsunamis that's inside of you, the earthquakes that's inside of you, the fire that's inside of you, the wind that's inside, all of these that are inside of you, you have to change those. And it's hard. It's not easy. And this is why we have these books. Like this, the Masnavi, if you look at this, this is not a book of stories. If you think this is a book of stories, then you got it wrong. This is a book that was taught in every madrasa in the Muslim world. This was a book that opened people's mind. It really will open your mind. It will make you think different. It will make you see, not in front of you, but see through the walls, see through the mountains. And this is what it, because Maulana Rumi, will get to it. The genius of Maulana Rumi, of how he does it. So what happens with us, with the human being? Why can't we see? Why is it that we can't see these meanings? Why is it that we can't see the reality? Because Rumi says the dust of dunya has covered your eyes. That is the problem. The dust of the dunya has covered your eyes. And the dust of the dunya can cover your inner eye, which you can't see anything. Right? And you're amazed at everything in the world. People are amazed. They look at things, they're amazed. Everybody's amazed at everything in the world. They see buildings, they're like, wow, amazing. Their eyes start bulging up. Why is that? Why are we amazed at that? Was our Prophet a person of amazement? Really, was he a person of amazement? On the night of Isra and Mi'raj, he saw the universe. He went through the portal at Baytul Maqdis in Jerusalem, and he went straight to the seventh heaven. He passed through, he got to Sidratul Muntaha. Then he passed from there. When Jibreel said, I can't go no more, this is your maqam. What did he do? Did he look to his right, left? Did he look to his right? مَا زَاقَ الْبَصَرُ وَمَا طَغَى. His eyes did not swirl. It didn't get overboldened like this. Whoa, look at this amazing creation of Allah. No. Because he wasn't amazed at these things. Because at the end, what Rumi says, what is the ultimate meaning? Al-ma'na huwa Allah. The ultimate meaning is Allah. And when you get to that, then everything else will be in the right place. Everything else, Allah will put it in the right place in your life. And this is why people have life like hell on the dunya. Because they put Allah below something else. And once you do that, everything will be a disarray. And this is why people have heaven on earth. Because they put Allah where He belongs. And Allah put everything in their life where they belong. So Shaykh Muhammad al-Yaqubi Hafidhullah says something beautiful. He said, don't look at the world with the two eyes of amazement, but rather look at it with two eyes of reflections. Everything that you see, look at it, reflect on it. Tafakkur. And this is how we get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sayyidina Abu Bakr said, تَفَكَّرُوا فِي خَلْقِ اللَّهِ وَلَا تَفَكَّرُوا فِي اللَّهِ. That reflect on the creation of Allah, but don't reflect on Allah, the essence. Because the essence, we can't understand it. Because you have finite and you have infinite. It's impossible. Anything you put under infinity, it cancels out. So we can't understand the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if we reflect on His creation, then we would know who He is. We would know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. And this is the teaching of Mawlana Rumi. This is what he wants to teach us, to get us focused on that. So, names. There's a reality in names. If there was no reality in names, Allah wouldn't teach the first thing to Adam. He wouldn't say, I taught him the names of all things. Why would He teach him the names of all things? Why wouldn't He teach him something else? Because there's a reality in names. And if you get that, then you got it. But what is the reality of the names? Maulana says, Hiç nami bi haqiqat didai. Have you ever heard of a name that didn't have any reality? Ya zigafo lama gul chidai. Or have you picked a flower? In Farsi, the word for flower is gul, which is the letter gaf and lam. He said, have you ever picked flower from those two letters? Can you pick flowers from letters? You have to think about it. That gul that we write on the board, it represents flower, but the reality of it, that's not flower. The writing is not flower. The flower is in the garden. Right? Ism khondi raw musamma ra baju. You read the name. Now go seek the name. Mah babalada na andar abaju. Seek the moon in the heaven, not in the water of the creek. Most people, they seek the moon in the water of the creek. They go at night and they look at the nice lake. Say, oh, mashallah, beautiful. Look at this. But the moon is not in the creek. That is the name. That is the form. That's the meaning, is in the heaven. How many people go through life looking at the moon in the lake? They never get to look up and see the moon in the heaven. So, and that's one of the reasons we give meaningful names to our children. That they have a haqq. One of the haqq, the right of a child, is to have a good name. The parents, they have to give them a good name. And there's a haqq of them even before they're born. So when they're born, they get a good name. So when September 30th, 1207, when Maulana Rumi was born as a child, they named him Muhammad Jalaluddin. They give him one of the most beautiful names. Muhammad Jalaluddin. And he was raised in a household of scholarship. A household that was generation of scholarship. Everybody knows his father. Sultan al-Ulama. This is his title. Sultan al-Ulama. The Sultan of the scholars. You have scholars, then you have scholars. What we call today scholars of scholars, right? That's what we would call someone like Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya. We say he's a scholar. He is Sultan al-Ulama. Mother, Mu'mina Khatun. What a beautiful name, Mu'mina. Who came from a family of a Khalifa, of the king. He came from a very dignified and scholarly family. They live in a city of Balkh, which is the center of learning even before Islam, which all the Buddhists, the center of learning for Buddhists were Balkh in Afghanistan. This is where he come. And after that, when they became Muslim, they brought that tradition into Islam. As a matter of fact, Shaykh Hamza wrote a paper how the Buddhists saved Islam, based on the logic of the Buddhists of Balkh during his university times. So he's raised there. Sultan al-Ulama teaches him from a young age. But this boy is no ordinary boy. Everybody knows from a young age, he's not an ordinary boy. He shows signs that no other kid showed. At age 12, they leave Balkh. They leave and they go to make the pilgrimage. He takes his family, takes Maulana, and they go from Afghanistan, and they go in every city they go, they see the scholars and go visit them, which is a good tradition. He visits Attar. Everybody heard this story, but reminder is always good. Attar wrote probably around 100 books by this time. By this time, he wrote about 100 books. Attar left behind 114 books, which is hard to do that in terms of, you can't just do that. There's 114 surahs in the Quran, just to, you don't know when you're going to die. But his books, everybody read Mantiq al-Tayr, the speeches of the bird, beautiful book. Many, Musibat Nama, Asrar Nama, Ilahi Nama, many books he has of poetry. Attar sees when Sultan al-Ulama, when his 12-year-old son goes, and his son is walking behind him to see Attar, Attar looks and he sees something that we don't see. And this is what we are talking about, meanings, not form. That you see right through. And I tell you something, don't think this is kind of this goofy Sufi stuff that, I see this. No, this is reality. And I've experienced it. We had a Deen Intensive in Santa Cruz, and we had one of the great scholars I don't want to mention the names just for their protection. And my own niece, she said that I want to see him for a couple of minutes just to ask for advice. And she was probably 16, 17 at that time with two of her friends. I said, okay, so we made these appointments to see the scholars for 3-4 minutes they would go. And I would sit by the door and the door was open. They all went in and I see a silent, like they're not saying anything. And I heard like boom. I just looked, one of them collapsed, like literally fell down. So we had to carry him out of the room, and they were all crying. These are like teenagers. And I said, what happened? I swore to Allah, Allah is my witness, I'm not making this up. I said, what happened? She said, I looked at him and I felt that he saw right through me. And I felt so ashamed of myself that I collapsed. This is a teenager, raised in America. But the point is that it is possible. All right? It is possible. And people have experienced it, that they can see. So when Attar sees this, he sees right through the form of this little boy, right? Many little boys in history, that they were not little boys. Sayyidina Ali was not a little boy, 10 years old. He said, I'll defend you, O Messenger of Allah. Everybody laughed. The Quraysh, they all laughed. I said, Ali, the 10-year-old? They didn't know who Ali was. Fath of Khaybar, when he came, he lost his shield. When he was fighting, his shield fell and somebody picked it up and ran away. He went and he knocked out the door of Khaybar. And he picked it up and used it as a shield and he started fighting. The Sahaba said, 7 of us tried to pick it up and put it back in the spot. We couldn't pick it up. This is Ali karamallahu wajhu. But a 10-year-old, nobody saw it. But the Prophet saw it, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He saw who Ali was. So when Attar sees it, he says, how amazing that a lake is pulling an ocean. Comparing the father to a lake and comparing the 12-year-old child to an ocean. But the father is not an ordinary man, he is Sultan al-Ulama. He is probably one of the greatest scholars alive at that time. So they visit him, and when he leaves, he gives the book, not to the Sultan al-Ulama, but to the son, Mawlana Rumi. So they go to Iraq. They meet all the scholars. Shaykh al-Akbar, they meet him. All of them praise this child. They go to make the pilgrimage. When you read these books, Western books, and I know a lot of you guys might read the books on Mawlana Rumi, a lot of them would say all these, there's a lot of nonsense about why they left. That they left Balkh because his father, Fakhruddin Razi, and his father, they had dispute amongst themselves because Fakhruddin Razi was more into logic and not into a lot of tasawwuf, and he was a Sufi, and the Khalifa of that time, sometimes they were taking his side. Just rubbish. Don't buy all that. If there was something, it was so minor that it wasn't something that they had to leave the country. He left simply because the Mongol invasion. Mongol invasion was real. They were hearing the news, they were coming. As a matter of fact, by the time they get to the pilgrimage, Balkh is destroyed. It's done. Everybody's slaughtered. By the time they get to Konya, Baghdad is destroyed in the hands of the Mongol. So it was a real threat. So they left. So from there, from Hijaz, they go make Mecca and Medina, they make the pilgrimage, they come and they go to Syria. They go to Syria, they visit the scholars there, and then they come to a place called Karaman in Turkey. At that point, Konya is obviously the capital. Al-Adin Qiqabat, which you all had the pleasure of praying Jummah prayer at his masjid. That masjid was built at the time of Mawlana Rumi and his father. As a matter of fact, both of them led prayers in that masjid. So he, Al-Adin Qiqabat, who was an amazing ruler, he invites the Shaykh. He said, come to Konya. You know, unfortunately now, in some of the Middle Eastern countries, like, you know, Emirates and them, they invite all these geniuses to come, and they say, come, we'll give you whatever you want, red carpet, any money you want. But come in, can you design the biggest mall for us? Can you design the tallest building for us? It's all about, you know, the world. But traditionally, they invited people who can, you know, elevate people to the moon, to the sun, to the heavens. Not just build tall buildings. So he said, come, whatever you want, you tell us, we'll do it. Red carpet reception. No questions asked. You come, we'll give you the chair. This is the chair of an empire. You have to imagine that. This is not an ordinary chair of Islamic studies at some village in some country. This is the empire of Islam. This is the Saljuq. So he takes over and he starts teaching. Maulana, obviously he gets married at a young age, and then his mother passes away. His father passed away when Maulana is 25 years old. Age 25, there's a lot of 25 years old people here. Age 25 is an interesting age. Is that age of, youth and adulthood. People are kind of confused. Should I dress like a teenager or should I dress a little bit older than me? At this age, Maulana is put as a chair of Islamic studies of Seljuk Empire. Now you can imagine what kind of brain he had. He was the master of every science of his time. He was a Hanafi faqih. He knew Hanafi fiqh backward and forward. He knew Quran, he knew Hadith, he knew Mantiq, he knew Falsafa, he knew all of the subject of his time. He was so well read. He knew Aristotle, he knew Socrates, he knew Fakhruddin al-Razi's tafsir. He had access to all these stuff. As I mentioned before, I'm just, as a matter of fact, I'm still listening to, my brother did a research. He's a doctor of Persian literature, and he did a research on the books that Maulana Rumi has read. Because if you want to know somebody, you have to enter their mind and what they were influenced. And some of these books that he has read, like you can tell how well read he was and what kind of genius he was, and who influenced him. Right, one of the most influential people was Attar al-Nishapuri, who the great poet, philosopher of Nishapur. But anyways, he becomes the chair. And his classes are filled with people. And like for modern term, it would be like black market tickets for his classes. Like people would be scouting tickets outside if you want to go to a class. There was no room. Thousands of people would come to his durus, and he would have a nice chair, and he would teach, and the king loved him, and he was a superstar. Couldn't ask for more. Superstar of Konya, the capital, and Alauddin Qiqabad loves him, the family loves him, everybody loves him. This is a unique man in this town. So, fast forward a few years, things goes on, and a traveler comes in town by the name of Muhaqqiq Tirmizi. Muhaqqiq Tirmizi is the spiritual deputy of Maulana Rumi's father. So he's his top student, and he's the one who spent most time with Sultan al-Ulama in Balkh. Now, when everybody got killed, he was one of the few survival of Balkh. He comes to be with his teacher. He arrives in Konya not knowing. They say he passed away. At this point, Maulana is at the prime of his youth. He says, you gotta go, you gotta leave. If you read the life of Malcolm X, what impresses the most, what's Malcolm X, rahimahullah, he's, the shaheed, American shaheed. What's amazing about Malcolm X is every time he would start from ground zero, he would go from the top and start from ground zero. Now, if you tell somebody, they come and ask you a question, you know what, go and start basic, learn the faraid of wudu and stuff first. They get upset at you. Oh, I'm 40 years old, you're telling me to learn wudu now? Well, what's wrong with you? I thought you're insulting me? Nobody wants to do that. This is the greatness of people, like people of Allah, people who are truly, everything is for the sake of Allah. It doesn't matter. Wallahi, there was somebody on Facebook, this is last week, and they put something on their Facebook post, and I got really upset, and I said, man, this man is a scholar, and he put this thing, and he mentioned another scholar, and it's very ambiguous. I hate Facebook posts and stuff, because it becomes like a... So one of my friends was sitting there, he goes, no, I have to comment on this. He just commented, said, listen, this is wrong, what you said. You should have mentioned so-and-so's name. It's backbiting. And and then he said, no, wallahi, I heard it from him. And I said, yeah, but you're not clear. Look at all the comments. Everybody's blaming that person. And you're kind of like sitting there looking good. And wallahi, what impressed me about this, he wrote right in the comment and tagged everybody on that post. He said, I just want to say that these two brothers, who he didn't even know who they were, they stand correct. And me, his full name, so and so and so, his full name, I am wrong, and I ask Allah for forgiveness, and I ask the scholar for forgiveness, and I ask all of you guys for forgiveness. I was wrong, and I was corrected, and I want to thank these people. Now that's tasawwuf. That's spirituality, no ego. You made a mistake, somebody corrected you. Malcolm X, the same thing. At the head of his gangster time, this is the man who is ruling the prison. This is the man that he can have anything he wants. Gangster life is like the king's life. For a gangster to get to the top is like the king. They're the Khalifa of their time. They can say anything. That's it, it's done. I want this, bring that. It's brought to them. Right? And everybody feared them. That's Malcolm X. But he meets this person in prison and said, no. You got to bow down to Allah. He said, okay. He looks, he reads, he said, this is haqq. That was batil. This is haqq. And I submit to it. And then he's there. From here, it starts at ground zero. And he becomes the king of Nation of Islam. He's the speaker for Nation of Islam. Every interview, he is the face of Nation of Islam. And then what happens? He goes to Hajj. He said, that whole thing is false. It's batil. This is the real Islam. What does he do? Teach me how to make wudu properly. Can somebody teach me how to make wudu properly? Then he starts back at ground zero. This is greatness. This is how you know if someone is great. Our own teacher, Sheikh Hamza, where did he learn Arabic? Sidi Isa knows the stories. He was sitting with third graders in Emirates in a classroom when he started. True? If I tell any of you guys, go sit in a kindergarten and learn the new language, Turkish, like, how am I going to sit with these little kids? You're insulting me. But that's the greatness of people who don't see themselves. They only see Allah. They don't see themselves. So he comes in and he tells him, Muhakkak Tirmizi arrives in Qunya. He says, where's your father? Father's dead. He looks at him, he says, listen, you got to go to Syria. Go to Damascus. What's going on in Damascus? He said, Damascus is the all-star lineup of scholars. Every scholar from all around the world, they flee and they're in Damascus because of the Mongol invasion. Nobody gets an opportunity like this. Go. You don't have to go to 30 countries and learn all these different sciences. Go there and learn. So he says, Samina wa ta'ana. He didn't say, oh, what about my chair? What about my status? What about my thousands of students and followers? What about all? He said, no, go. He goes. And these are all preparation for Maulana. Everything that he went through, he had to go through in order to give you this. If he didn't go through, and this is why it's important that in the destiny, and the game of destiny, where Allah takes you, all right, know there's wisdom in it. There are people who have had bad pasts, but then when they came, they had the best future. So don't have yes. Don't be hopeless on your past. Because Allah did that in order for you to learn something. So he leaves. He goes to Damascus. He spends many years there and studies under all these scholars. Different subjects, from Sarf al-Nahu to logic, to Quran, Tafsir, Hadith, Ilm al-Rijal. You name it, any science that you can ever imagine, he learns it. And because of the memory that Allah has given him, he really picks up things much faster than anybody else. So his 5 years of studying is like 25 years of somebody else. He comes back. He spends a few months more with Muhakkak Tirmizi. Now Muhakkak Tirmizi is not an ordinary person. He is second after Sultan al-Ulama. the father of Mawlana Rumi. Like that's his rank. He's not an ordinary scholar either. All right. And Muhakkak says, I gotta leave. And Mawlana is really depressed now. He said, why are you leaving? There's somebody that I found reminds me of back home, reminds me of father, someone I can learn from and benefit. You're leaving me. He said, I'm leaving you because there's a lion that's going to come from Tabriz. And when this lion comes, it eats everything that's in the cage. And I have to, he said, but you're a lion. Rumi said, but you're a lion too. He said, yeah, but two lions can't be in a cage because the stronger always eats the weaker one. So he said, I got to go. He leaves. When Maulana is about 38, 39 years old, this man walks into town. Now, let's leave Maulana and his story in one side, and let's move to the other side and go to Tabriz. Shams Tabriz. Young boy, totally different than everybody else in the community. Nobody can understand him. Why do you act like that? Why are you like this? Why don't you eat? You don't eat enough food. Why are you so skinny? Everybody's asking him this question. Why aren't you like us? You're not normal. Finally, father comes in, Shams. Why are you like this? Shams says, what did I do? What did I do? Did I harm anybody? Did I walk naked on the streets? What did I do? Did I embarrass you? He said, no. I'm happy with you, son. But why are you like this? There's something about you. He had no interest in the dunya from the time he was a child. Very few people. No interest. Allah completely detached him from the dunya. So he was a man who lived in a state of fitrah from the time he was born till the time he died. Nothing affected him. Nothing of the dunya affected him. And Allah puts people like that on the earth for one reason. Just for you to show that you can do it. And it's possible. Don't say it's impossible. Don't say it's impossible. It's doable. There are people who did it. You could be the worst human being on the planet and you become a wali of Allah overnight. It's doable. Bibi Sitti, a brigand. She was a brigand, Qutta al-Tariq, highway robber with her husband in Herat, Afghanistan. People fear. They would fear of these two thieves. A ruthless woman. What does she do? She makes tawbah. Her name changed. Nobody knows her name anymore. They know her as Bibi Sitti. Sitti is the city for women. And Bibi is an honorable term. The sheikha or the master. And there's her grave in the city. And everybody goes in her grave. Daily pilgrimage, they go and they make dua there for her. She lived, most of her life she was a Qutta al-Tariq. Most of her life. But when she made tawbah, Allah elevated her. You just have to turn to Allah. That's all you have to do. And then let Allah take care of the rest. Just turn and look how everything will be perfect. So he comes into town, this man, Shams Tabriz. Shams Tabriz was a Shafi, faqih, alim. He was an allama of his time. He would teach Quran, but he would always teach Quran to the children. He would always teach Quran to the children. He was a state of fitrah. He would paint. And it's all symbolism. You got to get these. What is the symbolism? Why did he choose painting as a job? It's symbolism of covering people's fault. Not seeing people's fault. He didn't see the fault in anybody. He saw beauty in everything. Everywhere he went, he beautified things. And then he started hanging out with the fuqaha. He learned fiqh. He says in the maqalat, I read on Tanbih and all these Shafi textbooks. I'm a master of all these sciences in a very humble way. In other words, I just want to tell you what I studied, what I know. And then I said, I just really got tired of the fuqaha and their rulings and do this and do that. So I said, I want to go hang with the people of Sufia, with the Sufis. So he said, I would start hanging out with the Sufis, and they were bragging about their tasawwuf. And I said, where's Sufism? So I left them too. And then he goes, he was a man who was always traveling. Most of the scholars, they traveled. Very few scholars that in the history of Islam, they didn't travel. It's very healthy to travel. Hafiz is one of the only poet that I know that didn't travel. He traveled one time to another town. He wrote this poem that is still every Persian, they sing it in a song because it's the saddest poem he has ever written, that I'm distance from my home, which is a few hundred miles away. He never went anywhere. He got invited to India. He wrote letters. He goes, I hope my poems are sufficient here. I can't come to India. It's too far. Sa'di traveled, the great poet of 13th century. He traveled for 28 years. By the time he came back to Shiraz. A lot of people, they traveled. Traveling was part of the sunnah where they met other scholars. And actually, it's really healthy for scholars to travel because they will not be stuck with one opinion, that this is the way and that's it. It's my way. You know, I'm in Hijaz, and it's the Hijazi Islam and fiqh that I understand. Well, if you go to Malaysia, if you go to Indonesia, if you go to Afghanistan, you might see something, a different proof, a different reason, and it might open your eyes and you can make it easier for people. So he comes, Shams Tabriz travels and he's looking for somebody to give. He has all these things inside of him. So if you want to know where did this come from, the Masnawi of Rumi, it came from Shams Tabriz in reality. He didn't want to say this because he wasn't interested in fame or in glory or in people saying, wow, that's an amazing poem. He wasn't interested. So he gave it all, downloaded it spiritually to Maulana Rumi so he can say it. He can get all the praise, right? So he comes and he travels, he paints, he teaches Quran just to make money, he travels. He sees these students, brilliant students, he goes sit with them. Not the right person, not the right person, not the right person. Then he goes sit with the ulama. He sat with one of the students of Suhrawardi, the great Suhrawardi. When Suhrawardi died, the student watched him. He was one of the top students. And then he went and sat with him. And he said, Shams asked him, he said, how do you see the world? What is your world view? And he said, I see the moon and the cup of water. And Shams said, why? Do you have a cyst on the back of your neck? Why don't you look up and look at the moon in the heavens? And he walked out. And this is the particular versus the universal. This is the particular versus the universal. How do we see things? He met with Shaykh al-Akbar. We met with all, but he wasn't impressed. He wasn't like this. Because it was all tafakkur. It was all tafakkur. And then he sees in a dream. He sees in a dream that he says, now, dreams are interesting because they are the next dimension. It's like going, we see in a room, you have Islam, Iman, and Ihsan. So first floor, second floor, third floor. And you have sign of end of time, which is the roof, right? So dreams are kind of like going to the roof and just having Allah just shows you things that you can't see in the room. So he has in his dream, he said, the companion that you're looking for is in Rome. The companion that you're looking for is in Rome. So he starts coming toward Rome, this was called Rome, Saghir, right? Asia Minor. Constantinople before and then became Istanbul, Turkey. So he comes here. Anyways, we'll speed up. He comes here, he walks in, and I went with some of the students with a group to where they met. And Maulana Rumi, and again, people who were here last year, they probably heard this. But Maulana Rumi was leading the prayer, and the students were behind him, and he came in, Shams Tabriz came in, guy who had no form. Disheveled, beard everywhere, hair everywhere, turban just loosened, his patch clothing, tired from traveling with a sack on his back. Comes in, everybody's looking at him, who's this weirdo coming into the masjid, at the madrasa of Maulana, where he's teaching. And Maulana is leading the prayer, he stands in the prayer, and Allahu Akbar, reads the prayer. And once the Imam says Allahu Akbar, after a few seconds, he sits down in the prayer, takes out his sack, and start eating some cheese. And everybody in the prayer, the ruling, you can't talk, you can't do anything in the prayer. You just have to Everybody like wants to beat him up, but they can't do anything. They're in the prayer. So Maulana does the prayer. While they do the prayer, he just eats some cheese and sits in the middle of the prayer. Prayer finishes, everybody attacks him as usual. This is the Muslim nature, you know. Like, what's wrong with you? Are you Muslim? You're a kafir. Wallahi, we forget about these things. We forget about how the Prophet treated the men who urinated in the masjid. And the man said, Wallahi, I've never seen a person more gentler than him, a teacher like him. This is how the Prophet taught. He said, listen, ya akhi, this is a place we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We prostrate here. You know, if you need to urinate, you go out. And they say, bring some water, you know, help out, clean this up. But they attacked him. People attacked. Somebody came in the masjid in our area with shorts. And everybody attacked him, this young guy. 16-year-old kid. They're short, your knees are showing up, because we only know our madhab, Hanafi. I just said, listen, leave him alone. In Maliki, the knees are not awra. It's all, just let him pray. He probably this is his first time coming to the masjid. I don't think he'll ever come back again. So we drive people out of Islam. So they all start attacking him. Say, what's wrong with you? What, don't you know your prayer? Don't you know? I say, I know my ruling. I know my prayer. I studied fiqh. I'm Shafi'i. I follow the Imam. I did iqtidah to the Imam, and whatever the Imam does, I did it. Wallahi, I did what the Imam did. I swore by Allah. I said, Maulana, what's the commotion inside the masjid? They said, well, here's a fool who came in the prayer, he stopped and started eating cheese, and he's saying he's following the Imam. Maulana said, bring him to me. He went and he said, what did you do? You ate cheese throughout the whole prayer? He said, yes. And Maulana said, Subhanallah. He said, the moment I said Allahu Akbar, I went into the prayer, I was thinking about this cheese that my wife made, and I'm going to go home and have that cheese. And the whole time I'm thinking about this cheese in the prayer. And then he said to Shams got up and left. No interest. Got up and left, and then Maulana said, no. Come on, you got to teach me. Long story short, he tried to push him away, but Maulana was serious and he wanted to study with him and went after him. And he became a student of Shams, and Shams became a student of him. Okay? So it's a two-way street. That relationship is impossible to define. You can't say Maulana was a student of Shams, because if Shams hears that, he will be upset. All right? And you can't say Shams was a student of Maulana, because if Maulana hears that, he will be upset. So they were both teachers. They were murads and murids, both of them together. All right? And this was the combination. And this was the making of the gold. This was the chemistry lab that brought the two together and put them together, and gold came out. So he started teaching. Maulana gives them what he has. Right? In Maulana, at this point, he is again the superstar, right, of Konya. But he has to let go. And Shams tells him, listen, you are a superstar because you're teaching what they want you to teach. You're not really teaching for Allah. You're teaching for them. You are a slave of these people. You have been enslaved by the gold and silver of the king, and you have been enslaved by your students' praise. And then he said, Band buksel bash azad ey pasar. Chan bashi band simo bandazar. Free yourself from the chain of slavery, oh my friend, oh my son. How long will you be a slave of materialism, of gold and silver? Free yourself from this. And he frees him, and he lets go of everything. And he goes in the room, and he's with Shams. And Shams teaches him. And everything that he says Sami'na wa ta'ala. Whatever you say, ala ra'si, khalas, done. No complaints. No complaint from Maulana. And Shams gives it to him. Now they're students. Us, we are the problem always, right? Students, we are all the problem. Because we want our shaykh for ourselves. We don't love our shaykh for him. Nobody loves their shaykh. Very few people love their shaykh for themselves. Everybody goes after the shaykh for something. Oh, because I benefit a lot from his lectures. Because I benefit a lot from his presence. What about because of him? What about I love him just for him? I don't care if I study with him. I don't care if I see him. I don't care if I'm close to him. I don't care if I'm far away from him. I don't care if he knows my name. I don't care. He knows your name in the alam al-ghayb. Trust me. There is no way. Rumi says, between two hearts, there are two doors. There's two doors that love travels. It goes from one to another. And if you love somebody for the sake of Allah, they love you. And if you don't see it in this dunya, they never meet you. They will see you in the akhirah, and you will be standing next to them. Like Uwais al-Qaranayn. He loved the Prophet ﷺ. He never saw the Prophet ﷺ, but the Prophet loved him. He sends who? His Sahaba, Abu Bakr, Umar. Go and say salams to Uwais in Yemen. Right? That's true love. That is true love. He didn't say, you got to say, you know what, let me go become a Sahaba, I get this honorary title. His love was beyond belief. So the students gets upset. They said, this fool, this idiot, they don't see. They see the form again, not the meaning. He's not very good looking when it comes to form, right? And Allah does that. One of the scholars, one of the great Jahiz, he was very, very intelligent, but he was very ugly. Very ugly. And one of the people, I think the king was, he saw him and he said, where were you when Allah was distributing beauty? And he said, I was ranked number 1 in the line of Kamal, of perfection. He said, where were you when Allah was distributing Jamal? He said, I was in line getting Kamal. So there is, we see, Sa'di has a beautiful story about Alexander the Great. He had a problem. They said, there's a wise man, he can solve your problem. He said, bring him. They brought him and he looked at him, he was very ugly. And he said, him? And the man said, Tana bar man mazan ki surat zesht. He said, don't belittle me because of my ugly face. Because that is not insaf. That is not fair. He says that the soul, what's inside of you, tanbuat chun qilaf. The body is like a scupper where you put the sword, and the sword is the spirit. He said, what the work is done with the sword, not with the cover of the sword. People are always impressed with a nice cover of the sword. But Rumi says, what use is a sword made out of wood? No matter how beautifully it's decorated, once you take it out in the battlefield, you would lose your energy of fighting, and the enemy will be 10 times stronger once you see your wooden sword. So it's about what's inside. So they saw the outside, they were this is ugly man, this fool, he can't represent himself, look at him. But Maulana saw the meaning, and he was with him and was getting from him. After a few months, the students would really, every time they would stand to prayer, they would just nudge him and they would just give him a hard time, and he was really upset. And then he finally left. Shams left. In one narration in the book called Third Script, Khat Sawam, it says he left 3 times. One time he went to Tabriz, second time he went to Damascus, and the third time he disappeared. But the general books, they always say he left twice. So he left, he went, and after that, when he left, Maulana went in depression. This was real. This is the first time Maulana found somebody who could understand him and he could benefit from. Truly he saw something. And when he left, Maulana said these beautiful lines from the Diwan Shams. He said, Berawid ay harifan, bekashid yar mara. Ba man awarid yak dam, sanam guriz para. Ba taranahay shirin, ba bahanahay rangin. بکشید سوی خانه مهی خوب خوش لقارا. اگر او به وعده گوید که دم دیگر بیایم، همه وعده مکر باشد Bifiri badu shumara. He said, go find my runaway beloved. Go find him and bring him to me at once. Wallahi, if you read this poem in entirety, you feel like it's written by a child who lost his mother. He is so desperate. He is so desperate. And he says, bring him, please bring him. And if he tells you he's going to come tomorrow, don't fall for it. He's not going to come back tomorrow. Grab him and bring him to me. He's so desperate to see him. So they go. Sultan Walad, all the students, they say, my God, we didn't know this was going to be the effect on Maulana, Rumi. So they go, they feel bad for Rumi, they go bring him, they say, we're sorry. They find him in Damascus, they bring him. He's there. After a few months, the same thing happened. Human nature, we forget, right? And khalas, they start. And Shams finally, after 2 years of spending with Maulana Rumi, there's a knock on the door, and he says, I got to go, and he leaves. I got to go get the door. It's a mysterious death. Honestly, nobody knows what happened to him. Two opinions that I trust from my two of my teachers. One of them said that the student killed him. And this man, I trust him very much. He said, there was a knock on the door. Shams said, I'm going to get the door. And he went, got the door. And there was the students, they grabbed him outside. They killed him. They buried him right where he is at, where we visited the grave. The other narration said that there was no knock on the door. Shams made it appear that there was a knock on the door. He said, I'll get the door. That makes sense as well, because it's like you're sitting with Sheikh Hamza and there's a knock on the door. And Sheikh Hamza says, okay, so you said I'll get the door. You wouldn't let him get the door as your teacher. You would say, no. For Maulana, Shams was like that. It was a teacher. And he was 25 years older than him as well. So he says, no, I'll get it. He goes, okay, yeah, go get the door. So when he goes get the door, there was nobody at the door, obviously. He gets out at night and he leaves. And he goes back to Tabriz, where there's a grave for him there. There's a grave at the border of Iran, at the border of Turkey, Iran. There's 5 graves for Shams Tabriz. Now, as we were mentioning to the group at the Mazar, if Allah loves you, right, He will make 5 graves for you. The people standing all around the world and making dua and sobbing and crying in your grave. And you're not even there. Because you didn't want to be discovered. Allah will uncover you after your death. So people, the angels and human beings, make dua for you until the end of time. As long as you don't want to be uncovered. The moment you want to be uncovered, you're done. The moment you think you're somebody, you're done. The moment that feeling comes to you, that, oh, I am, you're done. You cannot allow the nafs to do that. But anyways, let's move fast forward. He left behind many books, Shams Tabriz. After that, everybody knows the story, I'll just fast forward. He goes into complete depression, obviously. Shams is gone, not coming back. And he recites poetry mostly of Attar in Sana'i, who was the 9th, 10th century poet, Sana'i Ghaznavi from Ghazni, and Attar. Constantly he recites their poetry. The person that plays an important role are 2 students, Hisamuddin Chalabi and Salahuddin Faraydun Zarkub. I always mention his full name because his middle name matches my name. So I think that's enough, so I have to kind of break my nafs and stop mentioning his middle name. Anyways, Zarkub was a goldsmith who became a student, and Salahuddin was with him Zarkub was one of the first of his disciples. So they constantly say, Sheikh, tell us, give us some original ideas. Give us some original ideas. Please give us some original ideas. And he would say, no, let's listen to Attar. Let's listen to Sana'i. Let's do this. Finally, after a few years, one day, he said, give us some original ideas. So he reaches to his turban. Again, symbolism. And you guys have to get these, okay? Symbolism, form, meaning. Why from the turban? He gets it from the turban. The turban keeps your aql in check. If you don't have a turban, that's why you turn it, right? Like making tawaf, right? You turn it and you tie the aql so it doesn't go out of sharia. So he takes it out from the turban and he gives it to him. And it's the first 18 line of the Masnavi, which he starts with Bishna wazni چون حکایت می کند. Listen to the read as it narrates a tale. It's telling you a story. از جدایی ها شکایت می کند. It complains from separation. The separation of Balkh, the separation of his mother, the separation of his father, all these separation. But those are all particular separation. We have a universal separation, and we have all these particular separation. The universal separation of Mawlana Rumi is what? Is separation from Yawmul Alast, when Allah asked us, am I not your Lord? What did we say? Bala. We all answered in affirmation that yes, you are. And then from there, what happened? One by one, we start coming into the world. Our soul start coming into the womb of our mothers, and we came into this dunya. The moment the soul left the divine presence, that's the separation that he's crying from. And that's the whole teaching of Mawlana Rumi, is that he's trying to teach you, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, that we belong to Allah and our return is back to Allah. And he's trying to teach you that, listen to me, because I'm the ney, I'm the flute, I'm emptied from the inside, I have no diseases of the heart, I've been through the ups and downs of life, and I will guide you. You lost your way because you're full inside. You can't see. But follow me. I will take you to the promised land. I will take you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna lillahi, we belong to Allah. We are heavenly and our destination is heaven. خواندیم انا الیه الراجعون تا بدانی که کجاها می رویم. Oh human being, know your maqam, know your station. This is why you recite this verse, inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. So you know your station, that you came back to Allah, and your destination will take you back to Allah. Moon is not our destination. Our destination is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not the ladder on the corporate. It's not becoming a manager of some office. Don't sell yourself so cheap that Allah is giving this intellect, Rumi says to you, that everybody is amazed by it. Abdullah al-Ansari said in his tafsir, when Allah created the human intellect, just the intellect, He put it forth in front of the angels, and they were all mesmerized. They said, Ya Allah, what is this? Which creation is this? And Allah said, no, this is just a faculty in the human being. I'm going to give them a heart that's bigger than this. This is human being. Destination, divine presence. Don't aim low. Don't aim low. And this is what he's trying to teach us. Don't aim low. We're going back to our Lord. And how do we go back? He has the GPS coordinates. Right? Ishq asturullah bi asrar khudas. Love is the spiritual GPS to the divine presence. Love is the spiritual GPS to the mysteries of God. That is it. And his whole message is love. The message is love. But it's love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not love of the dunya. It's not love of the people. It's love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That he says, Ishq zanda, ishq hayya la yamut. That the everlasting love is the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is al-hayy, who is the living and He never dies. That's what He's in love with. Ishq murdam misla bayt ankabut. But the dead love, the ephemeral love, is like a spider's web. It's gone, has no weight, no value, nothing. Nothing. فرق در مجنون و در من این نگر کو به لیلا من به مولا در بدر. The difference between Majnun and me is simply this, that Majnun is desperately seeking Layla and I'm desperately seeking my Mawla. خاک شد مجنون و هم لیلای او. Majnun and his Layla both died and they became dirt of the earth. خاک شد خاکی به خاک وای او. Woe unto them who fall in love with dirt. هر که باشد عاشق مولای من. But if you fall in love with my Mawla, if you fall in love with my Mawla, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, باشد در جان من لیلای من. You are my Layla. You become my Layla. But fall in love with my Mawla. Fall in love with my Mawla. This is the love. This is why we read these things. Because this doesn't end. The love of Allah doesn't end. There's no end to it. هرچی گویم عشق را شرح و بیان چون به عشق آیم خجل گردم از آن. Maulana says, no matter how much I comment on love, no matter how much I talk about love, how many classes I give about love, but when I come face to face with love, I am just humiliated in front of it that I didn't do justice to it. This is love, because it's love of Allah and His Messenger. He was the ashiq of Allah and His Messenger. And He is trying to take us, because in everything that you fall in love in the dunya, wallahi, whether it's your house, whether it's a man, it's a woman, it's your car, it's your status, everything that you fall in love, the reality of it is that you're falling in love with Allah. But you don't see Allah in it. But we don't see Allah in it. Why don't we see it? Why don't we see it? Why is Chishti, rahmatullah alayhi, says, Baharchi mi nigaram, just Khuda nami binam. Chishti said, why is it that everything I look at, I see nothing other than Allah? I see the hand of divine presence, the hand of providence and everything. Sifat zat chu az ham juda nami binam. I can't even separate the sifat of Allah from His zat. The essence from His attribute. I'm so in love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And everything. Maulana Rumi says, in every direction I look, I see Allah. I see the hand of providence in every direction. He said, the reason why I see that is because nothing in the dunya has value with me. Everything in the dunya is worthless. For us, everything has value except the hereafter in God. Most people, we don't even think about hereafter in God. Most people don't even think about it. But that's the story of Maulana. He wants to teach us love. He wants to teach us to get rid of the nafs. Because the nafs is the only block. What blocks you from love is the nafs. And love is not external, it's internal, it's inside of you. Love is in the heart. Love is not in the body. Love is in the heart. And nafs is inside. And what blocks you is your nafs. This is why we were mentioning, this is why Maulana Rumi in the beautiful, in the Diwan Shams, he said, Chashmei khurshid tui soyegahi bid manam. Chun ki zadi bar sare man, pas to gudazinda shudam. He said, he says to Shams, and these are all symbolism. He said, you are like the illuminating sun, and I am the shade of the tree. The shade of the tree is very valuable. If it's a place that's hot, the shade of the tree is very valuable. Everybody goes in the shade of the tree, they sit, they study, they skip from the heat. He said, but you are the illuminating sun. And this is what I was. I was the shade. Everybody came, everybody like, oh, Maulana, oh, this is the shade. He said, but when you shined on me, I became worthless. When you shined on me, I became worthless. And that's what happens when the sun comes over, the shade is gone. And that spot that had value has no value. What is the symbolism for the shade? That is his nafs. Maulana's nafs was the shade. All the students and all this fame and glory. When Shams came in, he got rid of the shadow. And this is why our Prophet ﷺ is the shadowless Prophet. He had no nafs, no ego. He had no shadow. ﷺ. Because of nur. This is why when we imagine the Prophet ﷺ, how do we imagine him? We imagine him a man of nur, light, wearing a garment of light with a scent of musk. This is our imagination of him. Because he is not like us, like ordinary human being. Muhammadun basharun wa laysa kal bashari, bal huwa yaqutatun wan nasu kal hajari. Muhammad is a bashar, is a human, but unlike other human beings, he's like a piece of ruby amongst all these rocks. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's the story of Maulana, and that's what he's trying to teach us. Inshallah, what we try to do during the next 5 sessions is to go through some of the stories that he has given us. And what's my time? Okay. To go through some of the stories that he has given us, and inshallah, in the next session, I'll talk briefly about stories and why stories. Why didn't he write books? He wrote stories for us. And we'll go through. I tried to it's really hard putting a course together, honestly. It's 26,000 lines, and just to make something that actually makes sense and there's a sequence to it. I've been working for 4 or 5 months trying to put those things together. Hopefully it's beneficial. Again, please just take one advice from me in this. Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhu said, "Unziru ila ma qal, wa la tanzuru ila man qal." All right? Listen to what's being said, not who's saying it. All right? We're trying to teach this. All right? Don't worry about me. This is it. This, okay? Rumi. If I make a mistake, if I say something, if I offend you, and I will, because human nature, I agree with most of my teachers, generally speaking, except one that put him aside, with most of my teachers, maximum about 70%. Maximum 70%. And those are people I would die for. The teachers, I agree with them. I hate their politics. Their whole view of politics is, I don't discuss those things with them. I don't take that. Even if the majlis they're talking about it, I'm just sitting there silent. But I have a teacher. He's not a Muslim. He's Iranian. He's atheist. He actually hates religion, I think. But I take his classes. I'm in a 34th class, and you don't know how painful it is to actually, it's a live internet class from Iran, how painful it is to sit through that class. It hurts me, some of the things he says. But this man, I don't think there's anybody on the planet that knows language like him, of the Masnavi. So I get the language part from him. I don't get all that other stuff. We are old enough, alhamdulillah, we have enough that we can filter. Something, you put it aside, something you get. Nobody is going to teach you 100% truth, except Allah and His Messenger. Go to any teacher in here. Sheikh Hamza was mentioning last night. Who is going to teach you 100% truth? Allah and His Messenger. All of this book. There's a mistake in this book. I can pull out quite a few mistakes myself. And I'm a student of a student of a student. But is the whole book mistake? No. The only book that has no mistake is the Quran. That's it. Every other book has mistakes in it. So just go with that, and inshallah take what's beneficial and leave that's harmful, and make dua for each other, and may Allah increase you in knowledge, inshallah, وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا, and increase your brotherhood and sisterhood, inshallah, and make these few days that we are in Konya, give us the tawfiq that we have adab with the city, we have adab with Maulana, we have adab with Shams, and we have adab with the organizers and our teachers and our fellow students and the workers and everybody. At the end of the day, Maulana Rumi said, Bi adab mahroom shud as lutf rab. He said, the one who has no adab, he deprived himself or herself from the gentleness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah gives with gentleness. And if you deprive yourself from that, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك صلى الله تعالى سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. We'll answer this question tomorrow, inshallah, at the beginning of the session.